Hi everybody, it's Meg from Books Off the Beaten Path, and it's time for another early morning book review. And I've got a couple of tags coming up I need to catch up over the weekend. Just a little bit of life news. My bad luck continues. Did I tell you about the car? I don't know if I told you about the car or not, but the car broke down and I had to spend almost $500 fixing the car. And then the other day we woke up and the whole laundry room was flooded and the hot water heater had exploded. It hadn't exploded, but it had broken. And so now we need a new hot water heater, which is going to cost thousands of dollars. This is what you get for living in a house built in the 40s in Okie dokie. But I still love my little house, and we're going to get the water heater fixed today, God willing. And so that's a little bit of life news. But I share it with you because it sort of melds into this recent book that I read. So I read What Katy Did. And never heard of it before. Never heard of Susan, let me get her name, Susan M. Coolidge. Never heard of her. It says first printed in this edition in 1963, but I think it was probably before that. It reads like it's before that. Anyway, so let me give you the setup. There is a family with a group of children, and they're called the Carrs, C-A-R-R-S, and their father is a doctor and their mother is deceased, and they are being raised simultaneously by their doctor father and Aunt Izzy, who is kind of she's a worrywart, and she's always running around and telling them not to do stuff and everything like that. And the little clan, I think there's 7 of them, the little clan is led by Katy. And Katy, at the opening of the book, is 12. And she is just a wild thing. She tears her clothes all the time. She's climbing trees. She's making adventures in the forests and everything like that. And one of the things I loved about it was it had and I hope I get this word right. You guys will correct me if I'm wrong. It had an omnipotent narrator, like you do not know who the narrator is. Let me just read you this opening line. I was sitting in the meadows one day, not long ago, at a place where there was a small brook. It was a hot day. The sky was very blue, and white clouds, just like swans, went floating over it to and fro. Just opposite me was a clump of green rushes with dark velvet spikes, and among them one small, single, tall, red cardinal flower, which was bending over the brook as if to see its own beautiful face in the water. But the cardinal did not seem to be in vain. Okay, so who is this person telling us the story? We never find out who the person is telling us the story. But he or she tells us the story of the Carr family and the tragedy that befalls Katy. So Katy, and I blame the tragedy on Aunt Izzy, and you, I hope, will agree with me. So there's a swing set being set up outside of the Carr's house. And Anthony, they call him Old Anthony, who I guess is like the handyman. They live in this very rural area. Old Anthony has not put it together all the way. There's a spike missing. And so Aunt Izzy tells the children one wonderful summer day not to swing on the swing until she tells them they can swing on the swing. Now, she doesn't explain to them that the swing is not fully put together because, and I quote from the book here, she believes that children should do what their elders tell them to do without question. Well, of course, we know that's not going to work for our already headstrong main character, Katy. So Katy goes and swings on the swing set collapses, and Katy breaks her spine and basically becomes an invalid for 4 years. So she becomes an invalid for 4 years, and she has a cousin Helen, who comes to visit her, who cousin Helen was in some past episode or something like that. I mean, this is the first book. In some past experience, cousin Helen has become also paralyzed, but she's paralyzed for life. And cousin Helen comes to visit before the accident, and then of course after the accident. But they are all amazed at how happy this woman is, and how wonderful she looks, and how charming she is, and how well she dresses, and everything like that, for the fact that she is so terribly injured. So Katy, when she first gets injured, she gets very depressed, as anyone would be, as any child would be. She can't understand. There's so much pain. She can't understand why her father can't fix her. She can't understand why she's not getting better. And she just cries all the time, and she sits in the dark, and it's really terrible. And so cousin Helen comes to visit her, and cousin Helen tells her, now, this is not a giggling situation, and I didn't giggle on this, but I am smiling because it does sound a little bit over the top. But cousin Helen tells her that she needs to go to the school of pain, and the school of pain will teach her patience, it will teach her kindness, it will teach her courtesy, and it will teach her love. The school of pain. Because when you are an invalid, this is cousin Helen talking, when you are an invalid, the last thing you want to do is cut off your social ties. And the way you cut off your social ties is by being an old grouch, and by being, in a terrible mood all the time, so that people don't want to be around you. You want people to be around you, so you want to do the best you can with what you've got. And it was a religious book, which I didn't realize going into it, because it talked a lot about having faith and being a good Christian, and I enjoyed it immensely. I myself have been riddled with dystonia for years, and that's the cards that I was dealt, and you just deal with it. I don't know that I would be so excited to go, because Katy is actually excited to go to the School of Pain. I don't know that I would be, or that I ever was excited to go to the School of Pain. But after a couple of months in bed and not being able to turn my head in any direction and all that kind of stuff, and lying in the dark and crying all the time and everything like that, I finally just one day got up and I was like, this is the hand that I was dealt, and I have to deal with it. And so I started back up on my YouTube channel, and I started making friends on YouTube, and I started doing stuff with my friends who just are the best people in the entire world. Now, I want to talk about Goodreads for just a second. I don't want to make this an overly long review. I couldn't think of the word. An overly long review. But Goodreads, this book has gotten some very mixed reviews, and a lot of the reviews that are bad on Goodreads, that give it a 1 star and a 2 star and everything like that, talk about it because they say it is not a feminist book, because Katy really becomes the mother of the household while she's in the wheelchair. They get her in a wheelchair. She eventually gets in a wheelchair, and she eventually kind of like wheels around, but she never goes downstairs. But she becomes more of a mother to her 6 siblings than she is a gang leader like she was before. Like before, she was always like, let's do this and get Aunt Izzy mad and everything like that. But she changes. and she becomes more of a domestic spirit, helping planning the meals and doing a lot of mending. And she hated sewing before, but she learns how to sew and everything like that. And a lot of people on Goodreads just blasted that because they said, you know, it's such an anti-feminist book. Well, I beg to differ. I think that it's a very feminist book because I think about the power of women and the power of women. Women connect with other women, I think, far better than men connect with other men. And I think that that is a real power play in feminism, because the feminist movement is a large movement because women connect with each other, with other women well. And I don't think that doing domestic things makes you anti-feminist. I think it's just there was a call, there was a need, and Katy, despite her affliction, filled that call and filled that need. I loved this book. I thought it should be really read by more people, and I just loved it. I loved how, like, they did Christmas and how she wanted to buy presents, but she couldn't go. And so Aunt Izzy, who had been such a grouch, especially to Katy, because she and Katy had really butted heads before the accident, Aunt Izzy went out and bought the presents for Katy, and Katy wrapped them and everything like that. And it was just heartwarming. Now, eventually Katy does get her legs back. Eventually, after 4 years, she is able to walk a little bit. I think she has some, she still has some remnants of what's going on. But she has learned that this is life. Sometimes you're up and sometimes you're down. And she took the accident and she made it change her. She didn't let the accident complete her as a person. She let the accident fall away and became the person she wanted to be. So, what Katy did, I would highly recommend. And, having gone through some health struggles myself, and then of course, you've got the health struggles every day, because every day my neck hurts. I don't go a single day that my neck doesn't hurt. Every day that it hurts, I go to work every day, I deal with the water heaters, I try to keep a happy and open outlook on everything, and yeah, I'm proud of Katy. I'm in touch with Katy. And I think that the people that are giving it all these bad reviews on Goodreads are acting a little superior, in my opinion. But anyway, that was my review. I have a wonderful tag coming up from Philip about music. And anyway, I am reading a very old novel at the moment called The Wind in the Chimneys. And so I'll be excited about that. And I guess I don't have anything else to say this morning, so I will check you later.